Thanks for tuning in to Medical Experts in Football. I'm Taiwo, your host. Today's guest had one embarrassing moment in his career that would eventually be a springboard to his success in the MLS. He's an athletic trainer for the LA Galaxy. He also owns his own business called BLVperformance Therapy, where he provides treatment to musicians and artists. I'd welcome you, Adam Quigley.
Theoretically. So if all of your expenses were covered to go to a soccer match, what is one match you would love to attend?
Honestly, would love to go to the local El Tráfico of LA Galaxy versus LAFC from a fan experience. I was actually the first El Tráfico where Zlatan scored the hat trick and the LA Galaxy came from behind and won 4-3. The team I worked for, San Antonio FC, was playing the Galaxy second team directly after. So I was actually on the underside of the stadium during that game. During like such an incredible, like Zlatan scored the goal of the year and it was this absolutely nuts, like world-class goal. And I didn't even hear the fan erupt. I would say that or a World Cup final would probably be it, because the culture of the community, the city, it's just if you go to, let's say, El Clasico, you know, Barca and Madrid, or a game at Wembley, or like, but with the World Cup, you have the nation, right? You have the culture. It's much larger.
Okay, so I saw that you work as an athletic trainer. You also have your own business, but I want to know, what does Adam do during his free time?
I love honestly providing help and support to friends and family within the wellness space, but within the kind of like business building innovation. So, you know, meeting with other entrepreneurs, meeting with people that are like-minded and want to create change and growth in this world to better the lives of people. With that being said, I was in a Jewish youth group in high school called BBYO. And I still continue to help out and volunteer. It's an international Jewish youth group to support the wellness and kind of general mentorship of Jewish teens worldwide. And yeah, I'm still getting my bearings here in Los Angeles. I moved here a year ago, and after 4 weeks, the lockdown happened. So my experience of LA is quite different than it's been quite different compared to what a normal year would have been in Los Angeles because of the pandemic. But I think that this year, because of that, was tremendously incredible, because I was able to spend much more time focusing on work and building the colleague relationships and researching things.
What is a cool place in LA that you've been able to visit?
I think that the coolest thing about LA, and I say this very humbly, is how you can go from the beach to the mountains in a day. So you can do an incredible, you know, sunrise hike. And, you know, hike for 2, 3, 4 hours at Runyon Canyon or like Griffith Park, and then go down to Manhattan Beach in the evening for a sunset.
Have you actually done that?
The beauty of the off season and game days. So game days, we have the mornings and early afternoons. So that's been a special time for myself and family time in general.
Okay, so there are going to be some listeners that are not athletic trainers. So can you just tell me briefly, what is your job as an athletic trainer? What's your role?
Depending on the day, it's a different answer. But speaking generally, athletic trainers are a certified or licensed healthcare provider that manages acute care. So when someone gets injured on the field or in a workplace, we're able to evaluate and refer them to a physician, or, you know, if they needed to see a dietitian, whatever that is, we have that communal network of other healthcare professionals. And we also can manage that rehabilitation or whole process from the injury of the onset, or even before, with preventative activities through their return to play or their return to work. So seeing them on field, evaluating, working with them to see the physician, maybe not if it's unnecessary, then rehabbing them back through, you know, any running program or lifting program, or, you know, you sprain an ankle, and progressing them back so they feel comfortable and confident to get back to whatever their normal is. In my world, it's professional sports. In other worlds, it's, you know, at a airplane company or something like Amazon, stuff like that, where, you know, it's a workplace manager to support people in feeling their best and being able to perform with whatever that is at the top of their level every day, no matter what.
That was a really good definition. Now, what piqued your interest in athletic training?
So I did gymnastics from 3 to 13. And when I was about 10 or 11, so when I was 10 or 11 in the gym, one of my teammates was on pommel horse, which is the large apparatus with the two wooden, like they're called pommels on them. And he fell off, landed with his arm behind him and dislocated his elbow.
Yikes.
And we're 10, 11 years old. People were like, oh man, like that's gross. Oh my goodness. And I was like, whoa. And I like ran up to him and was like, yo, dude, like what happened? Like your arm. And so the coach called 911 and like I sat there. I went to grab some Ritz crackers from my bag to give him because he was going to go to the hospital.
Aww.
Like I sat there with him and was like, man, you're going to be okay. And it was like my first glimpse of what acute care is. The other piece of it was that we had a physical therapist, athletic trainer named Tom Yates, who owned a sports therapy clinic down the road. And he would come, I don't remember exactly how often, but he would come every now and then and evaluate and provide support to the athletes at that gym. And I would like kind of try to scoot over to see what he was doing because people would go over to him and see him with issues, limps, aches, pains. And after working with him, they would feel better. That side of helping people and supporting them to get to whatever their end goals are, whatever their end results in their life are within their day-to-day, like that's where I really find a beautiful synchronicity more so in utilizing my skill set of healthcare and the context of working with you. So you can run, so you can lift your child, so you can perform, on stage, like all those different things. That's where this world of gymnastics really opened my eyes to the global side of sports medicine.
Okay. So during an interview, you said how you do one thing is how you'll do everything. But I want to know what's one thing you did wrong during your early years as an athletic trainer?
This is something that I don't share very often. It is a wrongdoing at one point. But at a job, I was at an internship with the New Orleans Saints, and I had a little too much fun, I guess, one evening in New Orleans and showed up late to work. Didn't wake up to my alarm, didn't wake up to phone calls. Ended up, after additional conversation, parted ways with the organization. With that being said, it was tremendously embarrassing. And I felt that I had let down not only myself, obviously the club, I had let down the athletes I was supposed to be working with. Having that going on, and to that statement of how you do one thing is how you do everything, not only did that become a part of my story, but also became a massive wake-up call for me to realize that if I'm not responsible and take care of whatever I'm doing at the time, what's the ripple effect that can happen there? But then again, we all make mistakes. And since then, I've never been late. I don't oversleep alarms. I set a single alarm and wake up to it, right? I don't snooze. I don't do these different things because that moment in my early career, I just could not believe that it had happened. I was in true and utter disbelief. And something like this so often is something people want to hold down and not share for themselves. But then again, like people are late to work. People they drink too much. Like these things happen. It's not a life-defining moment, but it can be career-defining. I've even spoken to the director of sports medicine, head athletic trainer since then. And, they had said that, look, Quigley, we knew in those conversations in the moment, it wouldn't be well understood. Like, oh, well, give me another chance. But if that chance continued, it may have happened again.
So it definitely appears that you've obviously learned from that lesson because you're still working, within the professional settings. But I'm curious, how did the opportunity to work with LA Galaxy come about?
My opportunity here in LA really started with the first person that offered an olive branch after everything that happened in New Orleans. And it was a performance director at San Antonio who we had the conversation. We had built a relationship through the years of an understanding of philosophy when it comes to performance in medicine. And through proving myself in San Antonio and showing that I had grown through those moments, I always wanted to learn. I always wanted to see how I can be of support of others, but then also learn from them in the same process. And so I went to the PSATS meeting, so Professional Soccer Athletic Trainer Society, in Orlando, and I just wanted to get involved, and not for my own growth or to get into the MLS by any means. It was, no, these are people that know things that I don't. These are people that have incredible track records and credibility in this space that I'm still building on. Let me learn from them, you know? And so I created those relationships and ended up meeting people within the LA Galaxy organization. But so knowing people may get me into the door. It may have a conversation, right? But then if I end up getting hired and can't pull my own weight, and not only pull my own weight, but grow the organization to grow the department of sports medicine or performance that we're working in, it's much larger than just, yeah, I have this guy's email, or, you know, we went out for dinner over a societal convention.
So would you say that the connections that you made, they were able to just give you the opportunity, or did you actually apply? Because it sounds like you had connections and they saw your work and they said, hey, we want to give you a shot. Was there any kind of like application process?
So yes, there was an application process. It was a little less formal than, you know, like me applying on Teamworks, or Teamwork Online, I think is where a lot of MLS jobs are posted. When jobs are, and I, this isn't from the LA Galaxy, this is simply my own viewpoint. When people post MLS jobs or NFL jobs, there are hundreds of applications, you'd assume. What is going to stand out, right? And it's going to be a reference, it's going to be a recommendation, it's going to be a team or logo or organization that's reputable, even if it's volunteered time. When putting in the time, putting in the hours, it's not the literal clock ticking that builds a career. It's what's created and what's consumed and grown from those hours. What do you learn? How do you implement it? You can have every single credential, every single, you know, alphabet soup, as they call it in the athletic training space, alphabet soup behind your name. But if you don't know how to actually implement it, it's not going to go anywhere. So to what you're speaking on, I had a relationship, you know, a working relationship with athletes there, because a couple athletes had come on loan to San Antonio from LA Galaxy. I forgot about that. So that was actually a very strong working relationship, because they essentially were able to work with me. What questions do I ask? What solutions can I provide? It's not me saying, hey, I want to move to LA and work for the most winningest club in US history. No, sure, that's great. But also, they're not going to continue winning if they don't bring in the right people.
Yeah. Now, what is a typical day like for you, given that it's not a game day?
So a normal day for me, I wake up around 5:30. I leave the house 5:45, 6 o'clock, get in, I get a workout in. Oftentimes it'll be the workout that the athletes may be doing, because I want to create as many, if you want to call them synapses, I want to create as many similarities between the athletes and myself, so I can see that when they're complaining of hamstring soreness, well, oh man, yeah, I know those RDLs that we did in the workout were heavy, you know? So that's what I do first thing in the morning, because I want to be able to commit everything I have in that workday after the workout, sit down, you know, build out what we're doing in the day, more so fine tune, because things are usually built out a day or a week or two in advance. If not, there's already a protocol in place. So we have a medical meeting at 8:15. This is how things were in the past. Medical meeting 8:15. Athletes start coming in around 8:30, 8:45. You know, treatments for an hour or so, rehabs, pre-training. Training was at 10 a.m. So we're at 10 a.m. we had training. So we'd be on the field for not only acute care, but also on field, like load management, you know, where are people at in their weekly load of what I mean by that is you can measure people's running. You can measure their change of direction. You can measure their intensity or their high intensity change of direction, or their high intensity distance. Did they have a peak in their overall load? Did they have a peak in their overall, distance? So we do that on field. Then afterwards, there's another round of treatments, recovery sessions with athletes from, and 11:30, lunches in there somewhere, 11:30 to 12 until 1 or 2. And then we break things down, evaluate how the day went as a staff, and then basically plan out and modifies things as they move forward. So usually out of the stadium by 3-ish or so.
Okay. And so after you're out of the state, after you're done at 3, do you head over to your own personal business or do you head home?
It depends on the day, as most things do. But if I have booked out clients, I would work with them with a large enough gap within my work day with the Galaxy and personally that I never want them to overlap. I never want to have to, hey guys, I got to leave early. I got to see this client. Reading research, it's watching webinars, podcasts on the drives, and then connecting with like-minded individuals, in performance, in sports, in just the social awareness of what people are doing, what are cool things people are up to. And so it's both with clients.
So you work with the second team with, I believe, players age 17 to 24, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. So within the Galaxy 2 system, it was honestly even younger than that, 15, 16. We have some stronger academy players that, maybe 15, 16, up to generally 23, 24. You may have a couple older guys, or first team players that are coming to the second team for minutes, or just for injury minutes, like if we're trying to rebuild their on-field capacity, or if they're just maybe not in the lineup that week, they may then get minutes.
Okay, so compared to the first team, which has a full medical staff of nutritionist, dietitian, human performance coach, your team, you have just you and your performance coach. Is that correct?
Yeah, so currently I'm working with the first team. So I'm a first team athletic trainer. I got hired on originally with Galaxy 2. And yes, you're right about that. It's a single athletic trainer, so the head athletic trainer and a performance coach. Every now and then, some clubs will have an intern for athletic training. There was also a dietitian as well, from a high performance.
So do you work with the first team all the time, or is it both?
I've worked with the first team since June. So I worked solely with the first team.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Originally being hired though, I was working with the second team.
Nice. So did you pretty much get a promotion real quick?
Yeah. Which then goes back to what we were just speaking about. Like when people know that you can do a job, all you need is that single opportunity, that window of opportunity to then show them in that space. And I take that even from a private business with Believe of I'm an injury away from working with just about anyone within the network of people that I have.
So how many athletic trainers do you guys have on the first team?
So there's 3 athletic trainers. The MLS has actually required 3 athletic trainers now for first teams. So we have 3 athletic trainers. We have 2 physical therapists, a soft tissue specialist. It's the 6 of us.
Gotcha. So how do you think your autonomy compares to, say, if you were working with the second team when it comes to one, giving insights about an injury or even just exercise prescription?
I think that it comes down to the systems that are in place. Things are able to be probably a little more customized within a first team perspective because, I'm not the only person managing all of those athletes. I do think there's a high level of expectation and standard in any MLS club, whether it's the first team or second team. But from an autonomy perspective, depending on the club you're at, for me, it depends on the staff. And so for us, we're provided with different kind of areas that I get to manage or support people in. I may manage a single player's rehab where I'm able to build out alongside our protocols that we have to standardize that workout and progression of rehab. And then utilizing that space, pitching ideas and different conversations to the other people in our sports medicine department of, hey, this is working. How can we better it? Do you have any ideas? Or on the back end of like, hey, this doesn't seem to be working. Do you have any ideas?
Okay.
Where with the second team, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, it does exist because they're just a hallway away.
So even
it's different.
So even though the first team has kind of a customized way of doing things, you still kind of go out of your way to ask, hey, can we try this or do something differently to kind of still have you having a little bit more of an input in the trainings, would you say?
Yeah, so I think that a big word for all of that is context, and knowing the context, my role within the sports medicine team, as well as my role within the staff collectively with coaches performance, right? So the customization side of things or individualizing is a little different depending on the level, the first team or second team, but I think it's quite similar. It's just the expectation of the athlete and the context of who I'm working with. So if I'm working with a 16-year-old and who has an injury, the programming for them is generally going to be more elementary when it comes to digesting it from an athlete perspective versus a 32-year-old, 15-year veteran. They have potentially a general foundation of movements and abilities. So it's taking into consideration that context of who they are, their injury history, even their language. Do they speak Spanish? Do they speak French?
Since joining LA Galaxy, what has been a stressful either circumstance, situation for you, and how did you handle it?
I would say, and this is pretty common across MLS clubs, but it's managing expectations and standards with players moving up and down from the first team, second team to the academy, because there's got to be an understanding of where the player's at. So, you may have a player and if a first team player goes down to the second team, what are the expectations? If an athlete's injured, that's a first team player down with the second team, how can I have those clear lines of communication with the second team athletic trainer or even an academy athletic trainer if maybe a player is playing with the academy, to manage all of that? So I think that this comes back to what can be measured can be managed, right? So if I can measure and clearly neutrally look at what's happening, an athlete was injured on the first team, okay, how can I, within my role, get that player back to play as fast and as quickly as possible? One of them may be humbly stepping to the side and allowing someone that's better at something else to support them in that. And that may mean that for that day or for that, few weeks, I'm then doing more setup or breakdown or design or program design, and I'm not the person working hands on,
Yeah.
And that's something that I think oftentimes athletic trainers, well, that's the athlete I usually work with, right? PTs, whomever. But it's, I think, I call it servant leadership. It's serving the environment or the leadership, the people that I'm around. Sometimes that is stepping up and building out the program. Sometimes that's simply listening and passing along information. So from a larger sports medicine department of 3 athletic trainers with the first team, an athletic trainer with the second team, a handful of athletic trainers with the academy, we've all got to be on the same page or else everything is going to be flying around.
Yeah. Now, there are a few trainers that I know that work with the team and then have their own business. How did you come up with the idea of BLVperformance?
So it started with, I was volunteering at this BBYO International Convention, the Jewish Youth Group, and I was volunteering on the hospitality team. So we would have different celebrities, speakers, public figures, innovators in across the world come in, and I would host them as well as my team and get them point A to point B. But in conversation, they'd find out I was an athletic trainer. And what really allowed me to notice this is that we had an artist come, a musician come perform that was just coming off of a massive world tour. And in conversation with them and their management, they said, "Oh, you're an athletic trainer. Do you think you could take a look at the performer?" And I was thinking to myself, this is a like a very big time performer, why am I being asked as a person that you just met, right? It raised an eyebrow there. But I realized that the questions for that performer hadn't been answered, nor had they may even been asked. And so I wasn't able to provide them with the solutions to then work, because in sports, it's understood. You get injured, you get fixed. In music and in dance and in a lot of other, okay. So people in dance and music don't seem to, in my experience, don't always have the easy lines of communication that we do in athletics to find support. So what I ended up doing is I would just, help people out, send them programs. Hey, try this out, try that out, provide them with virtual service. Then once I moved out to LA, during the pandemic, they were, still working out, doing things at home, and it turned into virtual sessions. And then it turned into, some in person, depending on what's appropriate during this time. But providing what we provide for athletes day in and day out as essentially a concierge service to get them in touch with a doctor, to get them in touch with a chiropractor or a dietitian, whomever it is, because the people that I've worked with haven't necessarily had those answers. So it goes back to what we were speaking on earlier. I've built a strong enough knowledge base and network of high level providers. I may not be the answer for you. I know somebody that is, or can get you in touch with somebody. And then as they see the value I can provide, it's simply, I just need that moment where they need my service.
So what would you tell an athletic trainer who is interested in working in a professional setting while managing a business? What advice would you give them?
I think the first thing is speak with your supervisor, speak with your management within your full-time job. Make sure that there are no assumptions being made, and that there's a clear understanding that you are potentially going to work with individuals outside of your job. And then also, just getting started. I think that especially when we work with organizations or schools, universities, these things exist. They have foundations. There's a sports medicine department. There's maybe even a healthcare sponsor. But when you're getting started, you don't have all of that. But we do know what we do know. And I know that if you come to me with a pain or ache, I can help you. So it's getting started with that and building the relationships with the clients and working with the new patients and seeing what the differences are between that patient population, whether it's athletes, that are not with a professional organization or just a weekend warrior, providing them with solutions, and then just seeing what works. But I think the two biggest pieces: make sure you're not stepping on anybody's toes and you're doing things the right way. And then 2, getting started and just seeing where things go. And then 3, I would say, asking questions and requesting support as it comes along, speaking to someone that's already created an athletic training business, hiring a business coach, like working through potentially a lawyer, so you're not, dealing with liability on your own. But those avenues are started and they exist within the world today, within the world of sports medicine. So it's simply tagging in and taking advantage of that.
Now, looking back, what is something you wish you heard earlier in your career?
Adam, you are more than an athletic trainer.
And what do you mean by that?
This goes across really any job, any career, any walk of life that world, and that it's that I, Adam, am more than an athletic trainer. And what I mean by that is that I don't silo myself and limit and restrict what I'm able to do, how I'm able to help people, and how I view myself within the world. Right? Oftentimes we get defined by our university that we went to. We get defined by our race, right, or ethnicity, and we get defined by who we've worked for or what our career is, whether I'm going to provide value for you or not, right? And so being more than an athletic trainer isn't saying being an athletic trainer is not enough, but it's the fact that athletic training is my job and my career currently, right? But I provide conversations with some of these athletes about, like, I don't know, real estate stuff. I talk to them about how to manage relationships, like talk to them. They talk about brand deals. Like, there's always different things, and athletic trainers know exactly what I'm talking about. We are not just working with injuries.
Yeah.
Right. There's PTs as well, right? We're not just working with individuals.
So Adam, what do you hope to still accomplish?
What I hope to still accomplish is that I never feel that I am fully accomplished. A goal of mine is to be a head athletic trainer in the MLS by 35. So let's say I turn 35 and I'm a head athletic trainer. What I hope to still achieve, I would love to win a championship. Teams I worked for have gotten close, but never won a championship. I think that is just a cool experience in general. But I also want to create, and I don't want to, I am creating a ripple effect in the world within athletics and entertainment, that more people take care of their bodies and their health and wellness and take it seriously.
It was certainly a pleasure speaking with you. And again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time and for getting this type of information out to the world.
Thanks for tuning in to Medical Experts with Adam Quigley, and I'm Taiwo. Be sure to follow on Instagram, Physical Therapy for Athletes, for updates.